We've always had this like real desire to give people some musical control.
I think the guitar solo feature that we're working on is the pinnacle of the fantasy.
I was working on this stuff at the time, and it was like, oh, this would be a neat thing to work on. Oh, well, the freestyle guitar solo feature.
We really wanted to make a new rock band if we could have something new to offer, you know, and we think that we have a bunch of features in the game which we think are pushing in that direction, and we think the guitar solo feature is one of the strong ones.
About a year ago, when we first decided to go back at Rock Band, Alex asked Eric and myself to go think about what it would take to redo the guitar solo feature that we've been talking about for really 10 years.
Back then it was sort of like exploring. It's like, oh, what happens if I do this? What happens if I do this? And they were all very satisfying interactions. Yeah, it was cool.
Real musicians, they start just learning what other people do and copying, and it takes a while before people can kind of like find their own voice.
For me, it's definitely like a wish-fulfillment thing. I'm a decent bass player and a very mediocre guitar player. I could never play at the level that this thing allows you to play at.
And I think that this feature sort of shows that right in your face.
I just look forward to cranking it up because, it really gives me this superpower that I would never otherwise have.
The way this feature ties into the whole theme of Rock Band 4.
It's not that hard to use. You can kind of spam the controller and cool guitar solos fly out of it.
You really are on stage.
If you apply yourself and learn, all the ins and outs of it,
you're playing with a band.
You can really make it sing.
With other people, and there's an audience watching you.
In a way that's really creatively satisfying.
Rock songs forever have had guitar solos, right? Why do they have them? Part of it is just for vanity.
If you're at the mode where you're a skilled soloist, your kind of musical thoughts just flow through your fingers out into the air without you necessarily thinking very carefully about it.
It's part of the culture. We want to hear those like stinging notes coming out and flying around the fretboard really quickly.
And it feels amazing.
It's one of those things that seems like a pipe dream. Like if you told me before I saw the initial prototype that you wanted to add this to Rock Band 4, I would have said, that's a cool idea. I don't see how it would really work.
We did a bunch of stuff over the last few years where that was the first time we put a lot of effort into trying to unlock player creativity.
Basically, we've created a whole audio playback system that once we had that, we were like, oh, well now we can do this thing with it.
And we just started working on a prototype.
That's, I think, very true to what the company's always really tried to do. Bring the joy of playing music to non-musicians. And so, in that way, Harmonix really is the backing band trying to support you, the musician, to make sure that no matter what you're doing, you actually sound pretty good all the time.
Well, there's an unlimited number of unique guitar tones out there in the world. So we can, with the bias amp tech that we're licensing from Positive Grid, we can get a huge variety of very realistic, very authentic amp tones.
The kind of technique behind what we're doing sort of is this mixture of stuff where the system kind of helps push along and helps things sound good.
I think that the guitar solo feature constitutes new music gameplay.
And other things where the player's completely in control of everything that they're doing.
It's still gameplay, it gives you prompts, but you have a lot of freedom within that to kind of like take it whatever direction you want.
We often forget how complicated things really are. We get to the point where like, we think all of this stuff is simple, and we're like, oh wait, it's based on this base of knowledge that we've taken us our lifetimes to build up.
I think we're at the point here in the studio where anybody who's playing Rock Band, like no one is like pining for the day, the old days when we had to beat match the solos. You know, there's been some blowback of like, well, music gaming is dead, or like, you know, oh, there's nothing left to do in music gaming, which just seems like completely wrong.
With the guitar solo system, you're always going to sound good.
The way it's configured now is like, it's pretty hard to sound bad. If you just spam the buttons and input eighth notes on the strum bar, it sounds pretty awesome.
Like you end up really like moving around and having a really good time with it.
Maybe you don't understand exactly what's going on, but it sounds really cool.
It's more fun because there's less risk.
And I think this is a good demonstration of one solid idea about like where you might take music gaming.